your flesh and blood.
Welcome to Tell Me Your Story. New paradigms for a new world where we're giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. We are here 9 times a week. Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 1 a.m., Wednesdays at 9 a.m., and Monday through Friday from 8 to 9 a.m., streaming live at all those times at richarddugan.com. We are on SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, as well as YouTube, where you can watch these conversations. I hope that you will take time to subscribe and click notifications so that when a new conversation is posted, you'll be notified and you'll be able to tune in, listen in, and learn, and be entertained and inspired. A reminder that Choices, which is my book, 5 Steps for Life, it's available on Amazon.com in paperback, hardcover, and Kindle with Audible, soon to be released. We also ask that if you can support the work that we are doing financially, we do have a PayPal account. It is there for your security as well as ours. And when they ask for an email address to whom you're sending, please go to richard@richarddugan.com. That's the email address. If you go to richarddugan.com, there is also a link directly to PayPal so that you can send us whatever support you can. And we thank you to those who have helped and to those who will help. We also ask that you take time during this decade of perfect vision, the 2020s, to go within to that quiet, peaceful, calm, still place and listen to that still, small voice. And with that, we now take you to our very special interview and guest here on Tell Me Your Story. And welcome to Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan, and I have a very special guest who is coming to us via Zoom. Very excited about the conversation we're about to have. His name is Virendra David Singh, and he happens to be the owner. We're going to mention this because I think it's important for you to know this. He owns Mesa Pizza up on the Mesa here in Santa Barbara. So if you're ever visiting, please make a trip to Mesa Pizza. There's also one in Isla Vista for the college students and everybody else. And we're very excited to have him with us. And we're going to have an incredible, I'm going to call it spiritual conversation. Virendra, thank you so much for joining us here on the program.
Thank you very much for having me, Richard.
First of all, where are you from originally? Or maybe the better question is, where is your lineage, your family from?
We are originally from India. My family's immigrated from northern India, which Punjab and Rajasthan are 2 states. Father and mother came to South Africa in the 1900s, early 1910s. They were part of the migration of Indians that went to different parts of the world, the Indian diaspora, which is the Caribbean, South Africa, Mauritius. And we landed in South Africa, and we have been there for about 130 years. And we've assimilated with the rest of this South African population, which comprised of the Dutch, the English, and the local Africans.
So you have a very diverse and what's the word I want to use here? Rich cultural background that is from all over that part of the world, and a lot of us who have had our DNA checked, who are maybe 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th generation Americans, we're starting to find out that, we're connected to this nationality and that one and that one and that one. And the thing I love about it, Virendra, is that we're beginning to understand how connected we all are. When you began your spiritual search, was that part of the search that you were on to, for yourself, verify and confirm, if you will, just how connected we all are?
Well, firstly, regarding DNA, DNA we have traced the latest findings are all DNA life started in Africa. And from there, it went throughout the world. So for us to eventually go to South Africa and assimilate with that culture, everything changed in terms of our outlook in respect to the way we have interacted with the Dutch, the British, and therefore we don't call ourselves true Indians. But in terms, again, back to DNA, uh, we originally from India had a lot of DNA that came from Europe and England. As you know, the English ruled India for a few hundred years, and we have a lot of intermarriages and different reasons why we have a lot of British DNA in us. Um, and of course, European, the Aryans, the school of thought where the Aryans from Europe came into Northern Africa, Northern India, sorry, and eventually assimilated with the locals, and therefore we have different skin color, different languages, and of course, in India, the swastika is used to symbolize our very first most important books called the Vedas. It has 4 arms, and we have 4 Vedas, the Rig, Sam, Yajur, and Atharva Veda. And so therefore it's a very holy symbol. So when you say the quest and path, of course, part of that was how I would love to educate the West that a symbol like that, the second most important symbol in India, within Hinduism, has been so widely misunderstood simply because of the use of the Nazis, not the Germans, the Nazis. But yes, and being in Africa and also understanding the Black culture, the history of the Blacks was fascinating. To talk about that, if we have time, will be very, very interesting.
Oh, absolutely. And I do want to discuss that. That's all of this is so important. But what I want to get into at this moment is I want to talk a little bit about your spiritual upbringing, uh, and
Very good.
and then the growth that you went through, which sounds an awful lot like mine, at least in terms of the searching. Okay, so what was the first? I use the word philosophy that you were introduced to, maybe from birth or as a child.
So we, like South Africa, has a truly melting pot of different religions and people. My Indian background, uh, I come from a Hindu and a Sikh family. So while we practiced Hinduism, we also chose to practice Sikhism. And the Hinduism that we practice, there are so many. Hinduism, we call it a philosophy, not a religion, because it exists as so many different types of sects, I will use the term. And
Mhm.
the beauty part about each sect is that each sect, although worshiping different gods, understand that there's only one creator, and the creator manifests himself in all different forms. But there's also a sect that I belong to called Vedics or Arya Samajas, who believe in just Om without any idol worship. And that philosophy stayed within the parameters as written in the Vedas. Sikhism, which is the newest religion in the world, came up because of the distortion of Hinduism over time, and also the forced conversions of Hindus into different religions, forcefully and coercively, through coerce, um, reiterated the point that there is only one God creator. And so Sikhism and Vedic Hinduism is very similar. So that's what I grew up as. We grew up with my dad being also a Vedic priest, my mom also. And she was a Hindi school teacher. And growing up in Durban, South Africa, downtown, we had the great fortune of being around all different religious communities, namely the Muslim community, the different denominations of Christian communities, and part Black community that eventually settled close by. So my father would actually, on Sundays, there would be a old British woman who would come by and sit. My dad would give her a chair to sit on our driveway because she loved preaching about Christ. And we would get all the children together and she would tell us stories and excerpts from the Bible, and then question us at the end to see if we were paying attention, and gave us sweets when we answered the questions right. Yeah.
I love that.
And then there was a Christian propagation center down the road, which my dad sent us to that one also. And there they gave us small pocketbooks of the Bible, the New Testament, the Old Testament. And when you memorize certain verses, they gave you a record player, which those days comprised of if you take like a pizza box. If you took a
Mhm.
pizza box and you added one more piece to it, so you created a triangle when open, and at the end of the triangle, you put a little metal needle, and you put a
Mhm.
the brown cover, and it emitted a sound. So we could
Mm.
hear all the stories of Noah's Ark and so forth in those records. So the more we memorized, the more records we got. And, and so growing up,
Varendra, you're breaking up.
also,
You're breaking up a little bit there.
okay, can you hear me now?
There you go. You're fine. Go right ahead. Continue, please.
Okay, so Monday was Ramadan, and it's also a very important time. Of course, we have Lent that's right around here, but in Hinduism we have Ram Nomi, which Ram of Vishnu, which is our creator. And so all this is happening this week. And when this used to happen in South Africa, um, the Muslims who would fast during this period of Ramadan and break it at sunset, we would all be part of the whole troop of kids who would stand and watch the minaret of the mosque. And once the light went on, it means you could break your fast, ran home with the rest of them to open fast and eat the most delicious foods. So we, during a, a festival called Muharram, where they would effigies paraded down the street, and people of all religions will throw money into it and say a prayer. So growing up with all that as a kid made us understand this really one creator in all different forms, manifest in all different religions. And we saw the beauty of all those religions. And that made me dwell into the deep philosophies of each of the religions in the broader sense of Christianity, in the broader sense of Islam and Hinduism, while still practicing Sikhism.
Well, I will tell you that your experience, like I said, sort of it does sort of mirror mine from the standpoint of being curious. My first exposure to a different philosophy was when I was growing up, and next door to us was a family of Mormons. And I remember being invited to, I think it was Temple. And I thought, well, what the heck, you know? And plus the fact it'll probably count towards not having to go to Mass today. Well, I was wrong about that because when I got home, my mother said, "Where were you?" I told her the truth. I said I was with the James at Temple. You know, I went there to experience that. She says, "Okay, well, get ready. We're going to Mass." I says, "But I just went." She says, "It didn't count." Now, bear in mind, that's where my mother was then. She's not there now. She has a much more open understanding and appreciation for, and quite honestly, acceptance of these different philosophies and so forth. As a matter of fact, my parents have shared with me the fact that they, and before my father's passing, I interviewed them back in 10 years ago, and they basically both acknowledged that they have no interest whatsoever in organized religion. Now, as I understand the word religion, if I want to define it from, let's say, a New Testament terms, true religion is taking care of the widows and the orphans. That is true religion. Forget about all the other stuff, the churches and the buildings and the this and the that. True religion, according to what it says in, as they say, the good book, is to take care of one another. That is so important. What I'd like to find out from you is how did you bring all of these different philosophies together so that it made sense to you and didn't drive you crazy? Because you would think that on the surface, most people, when they start studying comparative religions, like in classes, there's going to be a massive difference between them, and people are not going to be able to understand that there is a cohesiveness. Can you talk to us about your experience with that?
Well, from a very, very young age, because we read the Bible, the Gita, which is the book of the Hindus, one of the main books besides the Ramayana, and then eventually reading excerpts of the Quran. We then found the Granth, which is a Sikh spiritual book. Sikhism started with the founder Guru Nanak visiting Vatican, visiting the Kaaba in Saudi Arabia, basically going through all these faiths and then coming up with the path of simply there's no Muslim, there's no Christian, there's no Hindu, there's only one God, one creator. That's a Sikh philosophy I found had assimilated all of this into one. So there was not much comparative I had to do. However, in my own readings and in my own search, people would always say all religions are the same. And in today's world, the way we communicate means a lot. Words mean a lot. Words that was accepted in the past are no longer accepted today. Therefore, I will say all religions are not the same. We are completely different in our paths sometimes. Sometimes our paths are similar, but our paths are different. But they all lead to the same goal. They all have the same goal. They all have the same, it's like how all rivers lead to the one big ocean. That ocean is the same, it's constant, it never changes. the paths of the rivers will change eventually, but uh, it's all same but different. We don't like different. People don't like to know difference. So we use the term religion, we got to be tolerant. But I don't like to use that word tolerant because you tolerate something that's a nuisance. I say be accepting. Um, be accepting of all religions and all philosophies and all different paths, including atheists. Um, even the atheists or theists will tell you, well, there is some logic in creation. And I laugh and I say, yes, and that's the logic I pray to. Uh, so, yes, during this search of mine, it did entail and does still entail reading all these different philosophies, which I find incredible. But at the end of the day, the goal is all the same.
And what is that goal?
That goal is eventually we all hope to merge with that one creator. We may say we will wait and merge with him in heaven, or we'll merge with him in terms of we are part of him. I'll give you a very beautiful philosophy, Hindu philosophy that's found in the Vedas. When we ask ourselves why we are in this world, and I want you to picture a Christmas tree. And on the very top of this Christmas tree, there is a owl sitting. And this big majestic owl eventually opens its wings and flutters its wings. And a zillion pieces of the wings all fall down to the bottommost of the branches. And from those wings, little souls are born, and their little birdies come alive. And they all hop along this long, big branch in the bottom and having fun and enjoying this beautiful tree and eats all the fruits. And suddenly one day it eats this fruit that may be rotten or something's wrong with it, and it falls ill and it falls on its back. And when the little bird falls on the back, it looks up at the sky and sees the big bird sitting quite content and says, I wish I could be like that big bird. When I get better, I'm going to be like that big bird. Well, the little bird eventually gets better and starts hopping around and acts like the big bird for a little while, and then forgets and enjoys life until he eats another rotten fruit and remembers the big bird again while it's on its back and sees the bird and says, no, next time I must do more and be better. Well, the bird continues to do that and eventually does do more of what he thinks he should to be like that big bird, and eventually closes his eyes forever. But when he closes his eyes and he jumps to the next branch. Now, this is Hindu philosophy, but the branch above it is a little shorter, and he goes through the same process in life. And each time he goes and to the next branch in his next life, he becomes more wiser, and the branch gets shorter and shorter and shorter. And through after many lifetimes, he's just below that one big bird. And at that point, he has attained self-realization. He's super conscious of who he is, the divinity within him, because in our philosophy we believe we all are divine because we're part of that big bird. The big bird is divinity, and therefore we are divine. And on the last day of that bird's life, on the final branch, it jumps up and it disappears into the big bird. It merges within the big bird. It was never different. It was always part of that.
Now, I have a good friend here in Santa Barbara that I've been working with and meeting for coffee and so forth, who every Sunday he calls me in the morning to see how things are going and check on his project that I'm working on for him. And then starts to tell me about all of the places that he's going to today. And he's going to start out by going to mass at St. Barbara. And then he's going to go to the Hindu service or ceremony. And then he's going to go to another faith's service or what have you, and so forth and so on. And he doesn't necessarily believe all that each one of these, espouses, but he just likes going. And I think he likes going more because of the community, of the connection. And I know that even within the Christian philosophy, that is one of the, I suppose, not edicts, but it's one of the things that is encouraged, that people come together and, and worship together, and pray and meditate and so on and so forth. It's based upon, I think, another passage where two or more are gathered in my name, there I am in the midst.
Beautiful.
And it talks about, of course, the fact that we are all members. It even in the philosophy it says we are all members of the body. Now there's referring to a specific and literal body, and that being of Jesus. And I'm not going to state either way whether that's true or not. That's the philosophy. And I find it interesting how we went through a period of, I guess, 2 years, maybe going into 3 years, where we were all separated from one another, at least physically. And there are those who say that this caused great mental instability in our society. And yet we had this opportunity, you and I, for example, the technology that you and I are using right now was available then, that we could at least connect visually and auditorially. And to me, that's a big deal. It's got to count for something to where at least we weren't really alone. And there was even someone who came up with the phrase, we're all alone together. And I thought, okay,
That's beautiful.
sure, absolutely. We're all alone together. Community is really important in all of these different philosophies. Connection, and even if it isn't actually physical hand clasping or hugging or so forth, being in the presence of other people is important, isn't it? It is part of what we as human beings, even on the spiritual level, are all about, isn't it?
Absolutely. We are made not to actually live in solitude. We need each other. We need community. In fact, in the philosophy of Sikhism, we use the term sangat.
Mhm.
Its community is very important. It's not just spiritual growth; it's individual growth. It is the importance of also nurturing your soul with simple things like happiness of meeting a friend, of being around people who share the same views or values as you, and enjoy it. We are not meant to be isolators all our life. Now, how isn't that so different from different philosophies like Buddhism, where as much as in Buddhism, uh, as it negates, which people don't understand this or don't never thought about it negates a lot of the philosophies of Hinduism. In fact, Buddha was a Hindu and realized the path that he wanted to use was different. So Buddha's path is searching within, and you'll find the answers all within. And of course, get rid of ego and attachment. And the world is full of suffering.
Mm-hmm.
And certain philosophies of Hinduism will tell you, okay, we got to now s- search within. No, you don't need to go and look for a mountain or a forest to sit and meditate to look within.
Mm.
Today, we can do that even amongst communal groups where you sit and meditate. You don't need to be alone. In respect to the what you said about Jesus and the different parts of the body, um, Krishna is the most important deity in the Hindu spheres of God. He vocalized the Gita, which is the most important book. Within the Gita, one of the most important things he spoke about was the four castes, which is the four societies of people. Today, that word is hated, even in India, because of what it eventually became. Um, what Krishna meant when he divided society was that you have the feet, which are the farmers, the producers of goods, the people who work the land. Then you have the legs, the that the people will carry and take those produce and eventually sell it. But in order to uh, take it and indulge in commerce and be safe, you needed the protection of the strong arms, the army, and which eventually became the army. And they will, once it's sold, the monies was kept and then divided by the banks,
Mm-hmm.
which is the brain. So you had the merchants, the traders, the soldiers, and then the Brahmins, which were the brain, the people who controlled everything. But what was the most important of all different categories or classes of people, not in a negative way? The most important were the growers. Today, even within India, they are regarded as the lowest caste because they brought money, of course, is so important to people that people give it importance and therefore give the Brahmins, who not just control money, they control religion also. And then you have the Brahmins, and the arms are the caste of people called Kshatriyas. They are the soldiers. And the traders are called Vaishyas, and the feet are called Shudras. And within that class caste, there's many subcastes till you find the so-called untouchables. Sadly enough, I'm bringing all this back to what you just spoke about, the time when we all were isolated.
Mm-hmm.
Those untouchables and lower castes, which were always ostracized or kept separately, all became one during COVID. During that time, when they realized these people are the ones who clean and do all the hard work and keep society functioning, are truly the most important people, like they were during when Krishna enunciated the Gita as the four different castes, the growers, the people down working the land are the most important ones. Well, COVID brought that, lots of those different divisions among society, brought those people together, and COVID showed us that we are not born and bred to be individuals and and live. You can't live and sustain yourself just by yourself. And uh, that was one of the good things about COVID. It brought people together.
It actually did, and it was quite remarkable how it did that. Um, I I do remember it was now some people will use a different I don't know, a different calendar or a different way of calculating. What I do remember, it was on the anniversary of my becoming full time at the radio station that I work for. So that, and it was also St. Patrick's Day. That's
Mm,
when the government shut down the country.
absolutely.
And
Mm,
yeah, and yet I continued to go to the station. I mean, because I was the only one working there. And of course, then we started using, at that time, I think it was Skype, and then we switched over to Zoom
yes.
and so forth. And it's very interesting how I found so many people who wanted to get upset and blame. I'm not even going to say who, but they would blame someone else for the dire straits that we were in. We were being lied to. It was a conspiracy. It was this, it was that. And it's like, you didn't have to stay. And many people didn't. Now, when they shut the country down and they told us what the deal was, as far as they knew, I thought, you know what? If we do what they ask us to do, we'd be done with this in 3 months. It'll be over. However, we didn't, and it wasn't for whatever reason. And and I'm not gonna speculate on any of that. All I'm getting to the point is that we still had, and many people did exercise their free will to do what it is that they wanted to do. And I would hear that, they're usurping my First Amendment rights. And I would respond to something like that by saying, well, that's interesting because they have no control over my First Amendment rights, let alone my own personal human rights, and also my spiritual rights. I'm exercising them by doing the things that I have been asked to do that are not burdensome. Washing my hands? How is that burdensome? Staying 6 feet away from someone? How is that burdensome? Wearing a mask? Okay, that might be because it does make it a little difficult to breathe in some instances. But I often think about that when it comes to this whole spiritual construct, if you will, uh, in terms of the freedom that we have as spiritual beings. And when I say that, and I would love your take on this, Virendra, liberty and freedom and sovereignty and all of those things are fine in this world. But on the spiritual world, this is just my perspective, and I'm open to be enlightened. They're irrelevant. They don't. If we're going to go merge with the one, there is no sovereignty, not as we think of it. There is no freedom as we think of it. There is no liberty as we think of it. It's something so much higher. I don't think we can even comprehend it. Your thoughts?
That's very deep because then when you look into, I'm now enunciating Hindu philosophy, um, everything is unreal. So it's this part of a Hindu philosophy called Advaita. This is this is that, this is not that. Um, um, when you first spoke about the loss of freedom, people forget again, we don't exist individually. When issues occur, there is a collective responsibility which we all have to adhere to. As much as we have our own rights and our own, uh, we feel that our liberties are being transgressed if certain things are done to ourselves. It was very interesting. I was parked by the beach one day and during COVID, and I overheard a conversation of a couple in the van, all enunciating different thoughts about COVID, its origin, and it all being a farce because we are in Santa Barbara and we don't see all this going on. when I was talking to my friends and relatives in South Africa, people were dropping like flies. People were dying. Tons of them were dying.
Mm.
A lot of people, Muslim friends of mine, Muslims are very devout about going to mosque on Fridays, and there were many who chose to go to mosque and believe that the Creator will protect them and never wore their masks. And my very, very close friend, uh, who did get COVID and eventually passed away, um, he would tell me, he would talk to his other friends and say, "So which mosque do you belong to?" And they'll say, "Well, we go to this mosque." And he'll laugh and say, "Well, that's one mosque I'm never going to go to because, yeah, because they weren't wearing the masks." And a lot of church goers, mosque goers, and temple goers who chose to go and place their faith in in the creator they believed in, that they will be protected, blindly followed that and eventually passed away. So the we forget that we exist not alone. Things that occur will occur also. I i say this with a little apprehension,
Mhm.
but karmically. There are people who passed away and people who didn't. There are people who was right in the midst of everything and they managed to get through everything. Yet there was this big disconnection between communities where one community felt, you know, we are not you are not affected as badly as us because you eat a lot of spices and so forth. And different communities, like, a different, whether you're Asian or Hispanic, or just the food itself, people
Mhm.
were attributing longevity or the ability to resist the strain because of the food, because of maybe prayers. But at the end of the day, like you said, we have the free will, we had and still have, um, the ability to reason, and for the better of the community, to simply follow certain requirements that would not hurt. Um, People should be able to be think consciously, collectively, for the betterment of the community and not just
Mhm.
themselves. And if they feel that maybe it's not true, you need to look outside yourself. Santa Barbara, we are living in paradise. We don't see so much that goes around the world. But if you did at that time, and Richard, even now, right now, um, it's coming back with a vengeance, except it's not seen and known as the uh, um, end of all. It's a very bad form of the flu. Um,
Yeah.
so I think, what I'm trying to say is we have to be socially, collectively responsible in our actions.
I am curious. I want to get into some more of this as we continue here talking with Virendra David Singh, and we'll do that as we continue here on Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan, and we are talking here on the program with I consider him a good friend because we've had just some incredible conversations over the course of the last month or so as I was introduced to him. And I'm very grateful that I was through the folks, Lisa and Chris Cullen, who had him on the program, talking about some of the things that he's involved in. And I was so intrigued by what you were saying that I said, I've got to meet this person. I've got to meet this man and hear where he's coming from, because it's just, it to me what you were saying was so important. It just made a lot of sense to me. How you were speaking. Um, you do not hold to one specific philosophy, but you have combined elements of all of the philosophies that you, shall we say, hold near and dear to your heart. Uh, how does that manifest for you and your family?
Um, Firstly, to have those thoughts and be in a country, in a place that allows you to not just have it, to practice it, to preach it, it's beautiful and it's not easily found, no matter what people tell you. Just to have everything you mentioned, just to be able to do that in this country is a blessing. Um, I'm going to digress a little.
Mhm.
When I held the first Indian festival, um, I invited all different religious sects to be part of this one group of spirituality that I designated the Oak Park for. And I invited all different religions to come and have a booth to showcase their religion and philosophies, but not to propagate it. And in the process of formulating the Indian festival that was never held before and still doing this, I met with a lot of resistance from even my own people, where they said, the world is not ready for this yet.
Mm.
There would be a lot of issues. And after listening to everyone, I still said, if we can't do it in Santa Barbara, it can't be done elsewhere. Well, we did it in Santa Barbara, and it was a huge success. It was a beautiful assimilation of different religions, different philosophies, where people first got to talk to each other, simply because it was so quiet that all the attendees went to the food booth to eat. So each person started to talk to the other and find out about each other's religions and philosophies. But it was, to me, a great start for me to start something, which I did in South Africa, in creating a multi-faith prayer place, to be also used as a after-school daycare. But I hope one day to start this in Santa Barbara. In fact, in my quest of trying to look for that, I did find a place downtown that hopefully I can get enough support to start this. But um, again, the ability to be able to have um, a society, to live in a society that's so welcoming of these philosophies, that's not judgmental enough where it can be negative. And there's a lot of beautiful Santa Barbaran people who actually can take the beauty of each different religion, like I did, and use it to better ourselves, lead a certain life where it is love all and serve all. Um, and that's the philosophy I live with. Very simple: love all and serve all.
Mm. Well, I'll tell you that it is a remarkable thing that we have people who are open to this process of investigation. Um, I just think it's magnificent, it's wonderful, and I think that one of the things that we are missing is that process. And it's funny because And in a way, it is kind of funny, haha, but funny, strange. Why do we go to school? We go to school to become educated. And we're supposed to be exposed to all different kinds of thinking, you know? And
It's,
yet, there are those who want to limit our exposure to different ways of thinking. What is your observation and even your suggestion to those who feel as though, like I do, or I did, when it came to my own education, those first 12 years? And I was going to school in the late 60s and early 70s and then into high school and so forth. Um, I wish that we had studied more about the various religions when we were doing world history, because
mm,
it seemed as though those philosophies were what drove most of the people to do the things that they did, even to the extent of discovery of this, that, and the other thing. Can you talk to that a little bit?
um, m- a lot of in world history, when you look at it, in different countries, um, a lot of atrocities were committed in the name of religion.
Mm-hmm.
But the truth is, it was never mainly about religion. They used it. It was always about power,
Mm.
money. Money is power. And of course, conquering different nations meant increasing your power. Um, so to me, I have seen this literally in most continents, in literally every country where this has occurred. Uh, but in respect to people understanding, and you know, when you look at religions, you whether it's a newer religion like Sikhism or the oldest religion slash philosophy, which is Hinduism. Of course, Judaism and the Kabbalah even may predate that too, in respect to customary practices and traditions.
Mm-hmm.
Um, each religious sect will believe that their path, their that's the true path, that's the right answer. This is, but you know, even it's okay, let's assume that there was a time in the Bible that people did believe in reincarnation, and therefore, the philosophy of Jesus rising from the dead and being seen again by Mary, first of all.
Mm-hmm.
I, if you have to believe in, like I tell my Hindu and Sikh friends, those of you who believe in reincarnation should know that we would have been reincarnated into any of those other religions. We would have been Christians, Muslims, Jews, Hindus in any of the previous lives.
Mm.
And then you would then understand that it's all relative in this respect to these are different paths, all leading to the same eventual goal, and just allow each other to follow their own, but try. It's like restaurants, try new things. You may love a certain dish within there. You may love a certain philosophy within a different religion. Um, it may open your eyes and you may find the answer to a question that you have been searching deep within. It could be spiritual, it could be philosophical, it could be even social, but you will find the answer in any religion.
Mm.
Also, religions and have beautiful messages, simply like songs. Uh, the analogy I use very often is when we're very young, we sing songs that we love the melody, and the lyrics, we don't really relate to it. Um, like I'm gonna just digress and say, Bee Gees, how can you mend a broken heart?
Mm.
It's sung in such a sorrowful way. And of course, we sang it so, like this is the Bee Gees, this is the 70s. But then one day you date or you lose someone and your heart is broken.
Mm.
You will sing the same song or you'll listen to it and it'll mean so much more to you. It is at that time, even within Buddhism, we say you reach a stage of realization,
Yeah.
self realization, where the message has come to you in a certain point in your life
Hmm.
that you are ready to receive it. Ready means you are in that circumstance while experiencing certain things in your life that suddenly the light goes off and oh my God,
Mm.
yes, you can relate to it. Every religion has that. I myself became a vegetarian when I always wanted to become a full vegetarian. And I said, before I do that, I'm going to indulge in a lot of other things. I'm going to indulge, and then I'm going to give it up. But it was right during Lent. I was in the Vedanta temple, and the Vedanta temple has the huge picture of Buddha, a huge picture of Christ, Ramakrishna in a front, and they would beautifully read from one book to the other or preach sermons from these books. And it was about Jesus being in the garden talking to his father the night before the crucifixion. And that was so powerful to me that
Mm.
I walked out never eating meat again because I heard the message I needed to hear at that point in that time, about 30 some odd years ago. So, being a staunch Hindu, Sikh, loving Christianity and Islam, I found that message at that point of my life then, and it was from the Bible. So I urge you all, everyone, look at all of these philosophies, these religions, these paths of spirituality, and you may be so lucky that you will find what you're looking for.
And you know that that is a beautiful message, especially from the standpoint that I learned early on that you will find whatever it is that you are looking for. But this was the context in which I discovered this. There were those who, when I was working for the Christian radio station, who were always talking about the devil, this and the devil, that, and so forth. And I remember someone that I was close to spiritually, and we would talk about these kinds of things. And he basically said to me, he says, you do realize that whatever it is that you're looking for, you will find. In other words, if you're looking for the devil under every rock, guess what you're going to find? The devil. If you look for God under every rock, then you're going to find God. And that stuck with me. And that's why I've never gone looking for the devil. As a matter of fact, in my research, in talking with rabbis and wanting to have a better understanding of this whole concept of evil and the devil and so forth, it was shared with me there was no creature, if you will, spiritual or otherwise, the devil. Now, yes, in the Bible, it talks about Lucifer, whose name is, I believe, a star of the morning, and so on and so forth. But there was no devil, like Flip Wilson used to say, the devil made me do it. And I will tell you that in that period of my life, working for that station, it took me 5 years to release myself from that philosophy, that part of the philosophy. I could no longer accept it because it was in contradiction to everything else that was being said about who and what God was. Like I say, it just didn't make any sense to me. So I let it go. Now, is there evil or are there evil people? I would say there are those who have evil behavior. But in terms of them being manipulated by some external force, I'll be honest with you, Virendra, I don't know. I really don't know. I can only say I believe. So, that's what I believe. So I don't know about you and your philosophy in that context of who and what God is, or the creator, or the divine, and or whatever other name these other philosophies bring up. I'm curious where some of these, is there such a thing as evil within the context of Buddhism?
So you brought up so many different facets of questioning. Going back to picking up rocks, we believe that whatever you think about, whatever you consciously or even subconsciously put out, it'll manifest. And you can manifest. And therefore, when you manifest, it will come true to a point. You forget that we all have karma. And karma is found in absolutely every religion, but professed differently. Basically, you reap what you sow. But when people talk about karma, because of the negative connotation that people uses it in, they forget there's good karma. There's always good karma. So basically, you are reaping the seeds you sow. And therefore, those who believe in reincarnation, whenever we question ourselves, why are we born in this family and have all these privileges and others are not? And yet, different countries or different situations. For those who do believe in reincarnation, it's your good karma. For those who don't, you will then say it is the act of the Creator. Well, I personally do not believe in the devil. I believe simply in our Creator. If they truly, you've heard this 1,000 times. If you want to describe what our Creator is, then when you have that euphoric feeling of being truly in love, that incredible feeling, and if you want to feel it, stand out in the sun, and when you feel that beautiful warmth wave come over you, imagine that together with falling in love for the first time. That's our Creator. That's feeling, trying to physically and mentally feel the Creator. Therefore, we always talk about doing good because you're creating good karma for yourself. And of course, when bad things occur, um, we have now, this is our philosophy. We have this beautiful thing called free will. Because if you don't believe in that, then you're going to then try to uh, uh, attribute all negatives to God or maybe then devil. No, when people do bad, we do it because we have this beautiful thing called free will. And that goes deep as to then why we are here. Like that little bird jumped from branch to branch, and when our Creator flapped his wings and brought us into this little world of ours that is of so little significance in the greater cosmos, and there's so many other life forms, we are special in that we are part of that Creator, part of that divinity. But yet we are able to have free will. We can jump those branches and choose to eat those fruits, the good and the bad ones, and overeat and become ill. We can choose to be bad. And when we do, we incur bad karma. And we will pay for that bad karma karmically, where
Yeah.
we will suffer. There is no, in my belief, negative Satan devil who's going to come and impose justice on you. God also, people, I was going to say foolishly, it'll be wrong of me to say that, but people then will use a term, God will punish you.
Mm.
Well, I don't believe that.
Yeah.
God is full of love. God does not punish.
Indeed.
You are receiving the effects of your bad karma. That's all it is.
Yeah.
And sorry, and finally, the great thing about the belief in a higher spiritual being is that when we say our Father, when you deeply, deeply repent and do and act and show your repentance, I believe that's when our Creator bestows His grace upon us and we are forgiven.
We're talking with Virendra David Singh, owner of the Mesa Pizza, as well as the Mesa Pizza in Isla Vista here in Santa Barbara, California. And we hope that you'll stay with us as we continue here on Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan, and my very special guest here on the program is the owner of Mesa Pizza Isla Vista as well, here in Santa Barbara, California. And he's shared with us some very interesting perspectives on his life and his philosophy, which is extremely, I'm going to say, very broad in one sense. But also, we've talked about some other things as well. And Virendra, I want to thank you so much. But before I have you respond to that, what is the meaning of your first name?
Hero.
Hero. I like that. I like that. And I love being associated with a hero. And I thank you so much for being a part of the work that we're doing here, trying to change the world, to bring forth new paradigms for a new world. We really do appreciate your time.
It was truly my pleasure, Richard, and I liked um, uh, your journey, your very similar to mine. So I found that really fascinating when we first spoke, and I love the path that you have taken.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. I do have three final questions that I ask all of my guests. Before I do, let me first thank you for listening to and watching Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World, where we are giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 1 a.m., Wednesdays at 9 a.m., and streaming at those times at richarddugan.com. Don't forget about Monday through Friday from 8 to 9 a.m. And we encourage you to get the podcast on SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, Blueberry, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and many other locations. We're on YouTube where you can watch these conversations, and I hope that you will. And then we also ask that you take some time during this decade of perfect vision to go within and listen to that still small voice, which is an area that we're going to have you back to talk about here on Tell Me Your Story, Virendra, about our intuition. We'll talk about that on another program. We also ask that if you can pick up a copy of Choices, 5 Steps for Life, we would greatly appreciate that. It's on Amazon in hardcover, paperback, and Kindle with Audible, soon to be released. I know I've been saying that for a long time, but I have run into a little bit of a roadblock. It's called Amazon, and I have not been able to figure out their new format for uploading Audible or audio files, but I'll figure it out and it'll be available soon. Also ask that if you can support the work we are doing financially, if you'd like to leave us a tip, we have a PayPal account. It is there for your security as well as ours. And we thank you for those who have helped and those who will help. With all of that being said, we, of course, thank our very special guest, and we go into those 3 questions we ask all of our guests. And the first one is, who is Virendra Singh? That's the question for you. Who is Virendra Singh?
Oh, sorry, you're asking me.
I'm asking you.
I'm so sorry, Richard.
Go ahead.
I think I am in this lifetime. I was put into this world to be an ambassador, more for interreligions. Sorry, from an interreligious perspective, I've been put here to show people the commonality and beauty of all religions and to bring people together. And to me, that is a passion that I have indulged in for many decades in very small forms, but will continue to do so in bigger forms.
Well, we look forward to being a part of that as well. Next question is, what gets you up in the morning?
The drive that I have for building my centers, hopefully again one day in Santa Barbara, a multi-faith prayer place with a after-school daycare for kids where the seniors and kids could join together, where the seniors mentor the kids in their formal and informal work experience, and also teach them all different religious philosophies so they have at their fingertips the ability to look and choose the beauty of all, and they will then recognize the beauty in everyone.
And finally, what was your best day?
My best day. I hate to sound so cliche, but the best day was when I became a citizen of this country.
Well, congratulations. And thank you again for being a part of the work that we're doing here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Richard. I really appreciate it.
And I thank you for listening to and watching Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World, where we're giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. And until our next broadcast, podcast, videocast, love to love. Jeanette, I am still listening. Dad, continue to be happy because I am. Smokey, I will see you on the other side. Mike, thank you for letting me be a part of your life. And to my dear friend Zorro, aho, aho.